Welcome once again to another very brief episode of the Relentless Watchman podcast. Today I will be talking about community organization for peace, establishing an agreement within a community to enforce peaceful action. Now we still have a tentative date for a special guest to appear on the show in order to talk about community emergency response. But in my opinion, the first step is going to be organization. Part of this organization should begin with like-minded individuals deciding that it's time for action, identifying the things in the community that need the most attention, identifying the greatest issues that the community faces, prioritizing them, and developing a plan to provide a solution to that issue or those issues. Now, one of the most prevailing issues that we are experiencing in many communities throughout the United States is the issue of violent crime, more specifically. Whether it's the shooting between rival gangs or the sexual assaults that are occurring. We have what appears to be a serial sexual assaulter on the south side of Chicago currently. I do not believe that they have anyone in custody at this time, but there was 5 incidents over a very short period of time, which indicates a problem. I mean, this is something that is not only happening in Chicago, but you can see it throughout different cities across the United States of America. And it's an issue that can be solved within the community. What I would like people to start looking at themselves as is first responders. You are the people that are on the scene 24/7, or at least a substantial portion of the day. You have the ability to make a citizen's arrest lawfully. You can respond to incidents. You can patrol your own communities in order to deter these incidents from occurring. There are some legal venues that you can use to establish yourself as a company. You can create your own security entity and establish yourself as an employee of that community through an agreement with the community. But before we go that far, we would like to start with some of the steps that you can take in order to initially organize your community patrol. The first thing I would advise is to do a canvass of the neighborhood. Maybe organize a meet and greet, but first go door to door and explain to the citizens in that community what your intentions are. What will be the guidelines that you will follow? What are the do's and the do not do's? Explain to them how this organized group would be beneficial to the community and get their support, have them on your side, even their involvement. There's something that we can all do to be involved in the security of our own communities. At the very least, if they are not interested in having direct involvement, allow them to see the benefit and to understand that the service is for them. Once you have them on board with the buy-in, now you have no pushback. People know and understand exactly what your intentions are and exactly what you're going to do, and the fact that you're going to do it lawfully. Next, recruit people to be involved. Find out their availability. Find out what role they would like to take. Once they identify it and give you their availability, then you can organize a meet, maybe a training date, so that everybody can be on the same page. Training should be initial and should be continuous. It should happen throughout the entire course of the operation. At least I would say monthly, but best practices would be maybe every other week, just to affirm what you're doing, why you're there, why you're doing it. Another step that those members should take is to befriend their local law enforcement. Let them know that, listen, we're just a community patrol. You all are the law enforcement officers, and we are very much aware of that. We are just here to support you all. We just want to be involved in the security of our own communities. And we will use you all. We will not abuse our organizational powers, our strength in numbers. We will communicate everything that we do with you, and we will do it lawfully under the color of law. Now you have no pushback on either side. You should be attending their meetings. You should be supporting their causes. This is going to be a cooperative effort between law enforcement and the community. They should be invited to your trainings. They should be invited to your tabletops when you do your emergency preparedness training. They can give you valuable insight in order to make the way that you've organized and the way that you plan and execute your strategies better. Once you have the buy-in on both sides and you've established your training, people have an understanding, then you can start assigning your patrols. You also want to communicate with the people who might be the problem causers in the neighborhood to let them know that this is not something where we are organizing in order to fight you. We would rather you comply with being a good citizen and not being a perpetrator of violence. But make sure that it's understood that they would do everything within their power and ability in order to keep that community safe. And that's all that really needs to be communicated. Take the safety measures that are necessary in order to protect themselves while they are on patrol, as well as having continuous classes for the actual members of the community that are not involved in order for them to have the best practices when it comes to safety, just in the course of their daily duties or lives. All of that coming together can be the beginning of a positive change, of a change of direction, of a converting of a culture. Parenting classes could be implemented as part of it. Let people understand the way that their behavior affects children. You have a lot of time, on a lot of occasions. I know I've personally have dealt with parents, very grown as far as age is concerned and physiology is concerned, obviously not mentally, parents of children who fight and go back and forth with other adults as if they were kids. I mean, the social media beefs, threats via social media, threats via mutual friends, and actual physical confrontations that have gotten very violent, including, stabbings and shootings. Allow them to understand what their behavior does, not only to themselves, how they endanger their communities, but the behavior that they are modeling for their children. Put them in a position where, we're not against you, we're against your behavior. And we're fine with you staying here if you can change it. But if not, that's going to pose a problem, and we're going to use whatever we have lawfully at our disposal to make sure that we either change your behavior or make sure that you're no longer in a position to bring harm to anyone. That would be a culture change, changing that mentality, that old school mentality of, oh, you can't say anything to me, you can't, I don't want to hear anything, or we're fighting on sight. It's going to happen immediately. One thing that has come to mind recently is the fact that as parents, a lot of parents are irresponsible with the fact that they teach children, if somebody hits you, you do your best to give them the worst beating that you can. And that's the only information that the children receive. Now, sometimes in the course of playing, a child is hit by another child, and it's not intentional. But what they have is the information of that we fight regardless. You shouldn't have hit me. So that's something culturally that can be changed. We can learn how to solve indifference without it becoming physical and without people getting hurt. But first we have to start with those parents and putting them on notice that that's intolerable behavior and it can no longer occur. So this is just a tidbit. This, like I said, was a very short episode just to get the mind turning of how we can all work together in order to begin to make our community safer. As always, I'll say when a child doesn't feel safe, nothing else matters. You can't expect them to focus. You can't expect them to learn. And as far as behavior, why should I invest in having good behavior when I'm not sure if I'm going to be around tomorrow? If we change the culture of our communities, we change the mindset of individuals, especially our youth, because the youth is the future. There's a lot of adults who won't get on board, but those adults won't be around for a long time. And if they continue their behavior, that time will be even increasingly shortened. But we have an entirely new generation of young people who can take the mantle from us to greater heights and can begin to rethink all these things that we have done wrong for so long. And they can transform them. All we have to do is make the investment in them, make those provisions for them so they can have that opportunity to rethink things, so they can experience that safe community where they don't have to be in fear all the time and where they can focus and make things better for this entire world. So it's something to think about. Once again, we appreciate you taking a listen to the Relentless Watchman podcast, and we hope to be back very soon in the very near future with more information, with discussion of topics with concern in regard to our personal safety as well as that of our fellow man, our fellow citizen. So thank you once again. This is the Relentless Watchman podcast. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back again one day soon. Have a great night.